Have you ever heard a voice from the past? Not in a dream, not in a memory, but a real, tangible voice reaching out across the decades? Today we're diving into one of the most chilling and inexplicable mysteries in aviation history, a story that blurs the lines between reality, technology, and the paranormal. This isn't just a ghost story. It's a documented event that has left experts scratching their heads for years. It's the tale of a phantom pilot, a flight that never was, and a 43-second transmission that defies all logical explanation. It was a routine day at the Air Traffic Control Center. Controllers, focused and professional, guided dozens of planes through the sky. Their screens were a complex but orderly dance of blinking lights, each representing a life, a journey, a destination. Suddenly, a new voice crackled through their headsets, cutting through the usual chatter. The voice was calm but laced with an undeniable urgency. Requesting permission to land, it said. "We have an emergency." Standard procedure kicked in immediately. The controller on duty asked for the flight number and its position. The pilot responded, "This is Transworld Airlines Flight 401. Instantly, a wave of confusion swept through the control room. TWA Flight 401. That flight number hadn't been in service for decades. Everyone in the aviation world knew that name. It was infamous. Flight 401 was the Lockheed L-1011 TriStar that tragically crashed into the Florida Everglades back in December 1972. All the crew and many of the passengers were lost. The story of Flight 401 became a legend, not just for the crash itself, but for the haunting tales that followed. Stories circulated for years about ghostly apparitions of the deceased captain and flight engineer being seen on other L-1011 jets, particularly those that had been fitted with salvaged parts from the wreckage of Flight 401. So hearing that call sign again, live on the radio, was more than just unusual. It was impossible. The controller, trying to maintain composure, did the first logical thing. He checked his radar screen, scanned the airspace, looking for any unidentified blip, any aircraft that wasn't where it was supposed to be. There was nothing. Sky was clear, at least according to the state-of-the-art technology in front of him. There was no plane, no signal, no transponder, just the empty, vast expanse of the digital map. Yet the voice was still there, crystal clear in his ears. How could a pilot be communicating with them if their aircraft wasn't even visible on radar? It defied the fundamental principles of air traffic control. The controller pressed for more information, his voice steady despite the growing unease. "Flight 401, I am not showing you on my scope. What is your current position?" The pilot's voice came back just as clear as before, but this time there was something else in the background. A faint, distant rumble, the sound of a storm. This detail, seemingly minor, would later become one of the most perplexing pieces of the entire puzzle. The pilot didn't give a location. He just repeated his request, his tone becoming more insistent. "We need to land. We are in a storm." A storm? The controllers glanced at their weather monitors. The skies in their sector were perfectly calm. There were no storms, no turbulence, nothing that would pose a threat to any aircraft. The pilot's claim was a complete contradiction of the reality they were seeing on their screens and outside their windows. The mystery deepened with every word exchanged. Here was a pilot from a flight that crashed decades ago, claiming to be in a storm that didn't exist, in a plane that was invisible to radar. The situation had moved from strange to utterly surreal. The entire control room was now listening in, the normal hum of activity replaced by a tense, focused silence. This is where the story takes an even more bizarre turn. The recording of this mysterious transmission was, of course, saved for analysis. Experts were brought in to dissect every second of the audio. They isolated the background noise, the rumble of the storm the pilot had mentioned. They ran it through advanced spectral analysis software, comparing it to a massive database of weather recordings. What they found sent a shiver down everyone's spine. The sound signature of the storm in the background of the phantom call was not just similar to another recording. It was a perfect 101 match. It was identical to the audio from a news report recorded on a stormy night in 1981. Think about that. The specific, unique acoustic fingerprint of a thunderstorm from years ago was somehow embedded in this live transmission. It wasn't just a storm, it was a specific historical storm. How is that even possible? Implications are mind-boggling. Was this a hoax? It was an incredibly elaborate one. To pull it off, Someone would need to find a very specific archival audio clip from 1981, get access to a restricted air traffic control frequency, and broadcast a fake distress call using a flight number with a famously haunted history. And for what purpose? It seems like an immense amount of effort for a prank that only a handful of controllers would ever hear. Furthermore, how did they broadcast without creating a signal that radar could detect? Standard radio transmissions, especially those powerful enough to reach an ATC tower, leave a trace. This one didn't. Let's re-examine the flight itself. TWA Flight 401. The original crash was a national tragedy caused by the crew becoming preoccupied with a burnt-out landing gear indicator light. They didn't notice their gradual descent until it was too late. In the years following, Eastern Airlines, which used many of the salvaged parts from the crashed plane, reported dozens of encounters with what they believed were the ghosts of the Flight 401 crew, particularly Captain Bob Loft and flight engineer Don Repo. These weren't just vague feelings, they were detailed sightings by credible witnesses, flight attendants, and even airline executives. They reported seeing the faces of the deceased crew members, hearing their voices, and receiving warnings from them that prevented potential mechanical failures on other flights. These stories became so widespread that Eastern Airlines eventually ordered all the salvaged parts from Flight 401 to be removed from their fleet. The sightings then stopped. So, when a voice identifies itself as Flight 401, it's not just a random number. It's a call sign loaded with supernatural baggage. Now, let's go back to the transmission. The entire event, from the moment the voice first appeared to the moment it vanished, lasted only 43 seconds. For 43 seconds, the impossible happened. A voice from a phantom flight broke through the veil of time and technology, communicated with the present, referencing a non-existent storm that was an acoustic echo of the past. And then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. The line went dead. Silence returned to the frequency. The controllers tried to re-establish contact, calling out for TWA Flight 401 again and again, but there was no reply. The voice was gone. The plane that was never there had disappeared back into whatever abyss it had come from. What are we to make of this? There are a few theories, none of which are entirely satisfying. The hoax theory, as we discussed, seems incredibly complex and technically challenging for little reward. Could it have been a technical glitch? Perhaps a bizarre atmospheric condition that caused a stray radio signal to bounce around for years before being picked up? This is known as radio propagation, but it usually results in garbled, fragmented signals, not a clear, coherent conversation. And it certainly doesn't explain the lack of a radar signature or the specific audio from a 1981 storm. Then there's the paranormal explanation. Could this have been a genuine communication from the spirit of a lost pilot, a residual haunting trapped in the airwaves? A kind of time slip where a moment from the past briefly bled into the present. This theory aligns with the legendary hauntings associated with Flight 401. Perhaps the crew is still out there, eternally replaying their final moments, or trying to send a message, a warning. The mention of being in a storm could be symbolic, representing the chaos and confusion of their final descent into the Everglades. This 43-second event remains an official, unsolved mystery. It's a file in a cabinet somewhere, marked unexplained. It's a testament to the idea that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, there are still things in this world that we cannot measure, track, or understand. It challenges our perception of time, space, and the afterlife. Was it a prank? A glitch in the Matrix? Or was it a genuine echo from a tragedy that happened decades ago? A ghost in the machine reaching out one last time. The signal may have vanished after 43 seconds, but the mystery it left behind is timeless. What do you think happened? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this dive into the unknown, don't forget to like and subscribe for more mysteries.